if you could though, when we're all done, if you could send me a link and stuff, and then I'll share it, and I'll boost your stuff out as much as I can too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to another episode of Digital Voices. My name is Bo Tiffany. We're a platform to tell our stories, find out who we are, share with what's on our heart and what's on our mind. Today, my special guest is Mike Jones. Mike has been a musician since pretty much the age of 12, if not sooner. He's a member of Modern Perception Studios. Super talented guy. He's a local Sheboyganite who is a artist, rapper, entrepreneur, and go-getter. If there's a skill he doesn't have, this gentleman will pick up the tools he needs to develop that skill so he can get past that hurdle for his own business. So I find his story interesting, and I want to wish him a happy welcome to Digital Voices. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So I've been watching you through, I guess, the last couple of years since I first met you. Was always on the sideline, kind of impressed with like the graphic design and some of the artistic stuff that I saw coming out that you were working on for Menace, and then seeing you start to dive into the videography that you have been, and instituting some of those creative effects within the videos themselves has been fun to watch and see. So why don't we kind of break you down and start out? Are you always from Sheboygan? Where are you from?
I was born in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, yes. And I lived in Appleton for a little while, Milwaukee for a little while. Then moved to Evansville, Indiana, and I lived there for about 10 years. And now I'm back in Wisconsin. Just recently moved up to Appleton.
Nice. So you've kind of bounced around, but you came back to where your roots were. A lot of family in this area, or what brought you back?
It's a little combo package, family, and I have a lot of friends from here that were doing music and stuff with music, and I just wanted to be able to come back with all the stuff I learned and be able to help other people from the area.
Right on. Yeah, I've been impressed. So the video work that you've done, when did you really kind of start to dive into that on the videography aspect of things?
It's been about 2 years now. Very generically in the beginning. Even still, like the last couple of videos we've done have been kind of like quarantine edition videos of stuff we were going to put out. But yeah, for the most part, the video stuff has been really about the last 2 years. And it's really been not so much about the music, is just really is what we can do as far as, showing the different skill set that we have as far as videography and graphic design goes.
Sure. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Obviously from Sheboygan, you got into music kind of early. You said you're kind of messing around at 12?
Well, this is way back when we couldn't just record at our house, so my very first experiences with recording were really rough. I had like a Radio Shack tape recorder, and I'd go buy instrumentals from, Sam Goody, and just hook up the tape recorder right next to the speaker, Earlier influences were, I listened to everything. Like, I grew up in a suburban neighborhood, so everything from Snoop Dogg to Dre to, Spice One. But then I also got into a lot of, I got into Tool, I got into Seven Dust, Korn, bands like that.
Awesome.
So influences are pretty wide ranging.
Yeah. And when did you start rapping? When did you really start writing your own material? When did you start kind of developing that skill set?
I was probably around 12, 13, around that age. I didn't start really getting decent with it or getting any kind of traction until I hit high school, probably about 15, 16. and people would have house parties, and I'd perform at those. Eventually, ended up getting into I was in a band for a little while, 2 different bands, and I don't know. I never really looked back after that. Once the band thing broke up and I had to figure out stuff for myself, that's how I started just figuring out like what I needed to record myself. That sparked all the art and all of that stuff.
So obviously when you were in school, middle school, I think is probably around 12, right? Is that 8th grade, something like that?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a big moment for you too, because going from like middle school to high school, and that's where we start to really identify with who we are. So early on, you kind of figured out your niche. I think that's awesome, and you've been kind of working on that ever since, right? Have you been solid in your work regarding rapping and music since that time, or did you take some time off?
I've kind of been steady with the music the whole time. I've never been like, if I'd be honest with you, I've never been like really full, like head on with it. There's always been like a job on the side or something like that. Probably the most serious point was we were looking at getting signed from a label in out of Nashville. I was working with 2 other gentlemen during that, and that was probably the most serious that I took it for a period of time. Probably about 2011, somewhere in there. But then, when it starts becoming like where it's just a job and it's no longer fun to do, then,
Right.
that I kind of interest in that, So I've always kind of kept it more of a hobby than anything else. I definitely want to get a message out there. I just don't want to do it at sacrificing, the joy of it,
Right. No, absolutely. Like you hit it on the head. It's no longer fun if it becomes work, and that creative part, I think, is attached to that relaxed, fun part of it. I think that a lot of artists struggle to try to, meet like a record label's time frame for a new album sometimes, or, they get packaged in and they have to, get this material out there. A lot of people struggle on creating that new material. Some people are really gifted. I look at bands like Aerosmith where, God, they just keep writing songs after song after song, and they're all hits. They're all amazing. But bands like that or artists like that are few and far between. A lot of us, we work on that stuff. We put our heart and soul into it for a long time to get it to where it's at. How do you feel like you identify? Are you more of the latter or more of the first? It sounds like you're more of the latter.
I've always been kind of like socially driven by like the things going on around me.
Yeah.
So, if I'd be honest, in the very beginning, like when we're first figuring out who we are as artists, a lot of times, it's through flattery, like we want to sound or mimic somebody else to try to figure out who we are, and honestly, like, I might've struggled with that in the first couple of years, really working with stuff until I figured out, like, I don't really care, like, anymore, what anybody
Right.
thinks about what I'm doing. And that tends to be, especially with hip hop, like other genres of music, they don't have to worry about it as much, like you can just be exactly who you're supposed to be, with rap, you got the machismo and, like, you got to be a tough guy and how much money do you got? How many girls are you getting? So for a while, I definitely did take my foot off the gas of things for a little bit because it seemed like unless I was talking about those things, nobody was trying to hear what I was saying, So probably about 2 years ago is where the fire kind of got lit up underneath me again. And it's really honestly been politically and spiritually driven, like I've been watching the news and seeing how people adapt their styles and everything to like what's going on and what's current, and selling themselves out just for a couple of views. And I don't know, it started to bug me. So it really, like, I've actually seen a resurgence in my stuff, whereas it was probably dormant for a good like 6-7 years where nobody was really picking up on anything. And then all of a sudden, like with the new political landscape and everything, boom, everybody's like, it was crazy, you know. So I was getting messages out of nowhere to come back to Wisconsin and perform, and that kind of just, it reinvigorated me, you know, a little fire.
Yeah. Well, you have something to say. I found that interesting that you brought up how, you know, you don't want to talk about the same old thing. You want to talk about what's on your heart, what's on your mind, right? You're not trying to fill that cookie cutter mold just to sell albums or gain a little bit of momentary traction. You're trying to keep it real.
Well, and I think for somebody like me, that's the upside of, you know, not chasing things so seriously. You know, like I'm not signed to a label, or I don't have to, you know, worry about 30 of my friends not talking to me because I hit a subject that was too close, you know?
Right.
So the beauty of being at this age, you know, and looking at a lot of the new stuff coming out, you know, I don't feel a need to align myself with anybody, you know?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think most successful artists are like that. You know, a lot of these cookie cutter guys are in for a minute and out right away, right? It's the original guys that stick around. Like, you know, I loved watching like Straight Outta Compton. I don't know if you saw that on Netflix or any of the other Netflix underground behind the scenes, how they made who they were, you know, like Dre and Snoop Dogg and Ice Cube and all those guys. And I grew up with them too. And, you know, I mean, my first rap record, you know, was back with like NWA and like, you know, Run DMC, God forbid, if you want to call that rap, but, you know, like early on. And then, you know, where it real took off for me was like the Beastie Boys, you know, and, getting into like Dre and, man, and Notorious B.I.G. and, you know, Pac. Those are all my artists that I listened to growing up. But yet I'll jam the shit out of some, you know, Nickelback or like some Ozzy or Metallica. You know, I love all sorts of music. But in my youth, that's what I identified with. And I don't know if it was just like that talk about the struggle, because I myself have had a hell of a life. I shared a lot of that in my podcast. That's kind of why I said it the way I did. But you know, it's a sound that I identify with. I'm damn near 50 and I still pop the shit out of some like Notorious B.I.G., you know, just getting nostalgic and shit. And it brings me back, you know, I think,
well, I mean, that was definitely the golden era. I mean,
yeah.
Look at all the talent that came out of that era, you know, and like, I mean, huge artists. You had Pac, you had Biggie, I mean, Outkast, you know, just Jay-Z, you know,
all
like,
new sounds. Nobody was repeating anything. It was all fresh. I love that.
Yeah, everybody had their own significant style, you know. But even on the other side of the spectrum, you know, you look at some of the bands that were coming out during that time too, you know. You know, just for instance, from everything from Tool to even back to bands I was saying earlier, Seven Dust.
A lot of new sounds.
It was just a great era of music. You know, it was right on the edge of, you know, all the hair metal shit dying out.
Yep.
And then boom, just this resurgence of real grungy, badass. Like, I mean, dude, we had Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots. I mean, that was a golden era of music, like all the way around.
You know, a lot of those bands came out of Seattle, Washington. A lot of music came, you know, grunge in itself, that whole niche came from Seattle, you know. It's interesting because that could happen here in Sheboygan potentially, or any, you know what I mean? You create an individual sound that catches on and people follow that, and the next thing you know, people they're influenced by it and it becomes something more. You know, great example is what we were just talking about.
I think a huge part of the problem for local music, especially where where rap and hip hop is concerned is, and I'm not trying to downgrade nobody from this new era coming up, but there's definitely been a more of a standoffish type thing with, older music, because it's like there's this generational divide, and it goes both ways. It's like a lot of the older artists refuse to give any play or any listen to like any of the new stuff coming out, and a lot of the newer guys coming out, feel the same way. They don't want to hear the old shit no more. So there is a changing of the guard, and there does need to come a time where you respect some of the stuff. Otherwise, you just But they definitely make it hard. Because of the fact there's the amount of originality coming. It's so few and far between where you find somebody that's really unique and okay with being unique.
Mm-hmm.
Even with somebody I respect like Post Malone. It's great, but you can almost tell by looking at the guy, he's not doing what he really wants to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
He don't seem genuinely as happy as he did when he first came out, where he had that shock of like, holy shit, I'm famous. Now all of a sudden you're 4 or 5 years into this guy's career, and he's like, damn, I really want to do some rock shit,
Right.
and
he can't. Yeah, it's the freedom to explore your artistic nature that when you're stuck into that box and they're trying to sell you, it's not so much that I feel that the record companies or the labels are trying to be controlling. They're just trying to sell. When they invest the money, they're trying to get it back. And I get that to a certain extent. However, we miss out on a lot. When we put someone to a cookie cutter and we try to get them to regurgitate the same thing, a lot of great artists grow from album to album. It's not the same sound. They try very hard not to be the same sound. There's others that want to be the same sound because that's what they're playing to their fan base, and that's what their fan base wants. But you're not that kind of artist, and most artists aren't that kind of artist. To be a cookie cutter and shoved into a box where you can only play a certain way without exploring some of the other things that you want to get into. That's why a lot of these lead singers or something will have two bands. One will be you take a look at Aaron Lewis, isn't that the artist? Yeah. Plays in two really great bands, both completely different from one another. So anyways, I got lost there, but your sound in itself has kind of been an influence of your upbringing. Popping around, there's different types of music, whether you're on the East Coast, Midwest, or West Coast. That's why, back in the day we had the rivalry East Coast, West Coast, that still holds true today, I think, but not as much. What are your opinions on that as you've traveled around?
I think music, it's hard to say when it comes to the band stuff. I don't play in that arena enough I know what I like to hear,
Right.
You look at and I keep going back to Tool because I was in love with that album the whole last summer and the summer, it's just awesome. If you look at a band like that, okay, they might have been a lot heavier when they first started out, right? And then people hear them, and then over time they start to mellow out and chill out a little bit. And they musically, though, sonically, you listen to it and it's just amazing, but people don't understand the mechanics that go into something like that. So they look at it and they're like, well, this is really boring, without understanding, like, you just listened to a masterpiece,
Right.
So where rap and hip hop are concerned, the musicality, there might be one producer, out of Atlanta, and artists all over the country, he's one of the hottest producers right now. So artists all over the country flock to get beats from that guy. So it's not as clear cut as it used to be. Like the East Coast, West, there was a distinct style when you heard, down south or East Coast or crunk or any, there was something distinct about each of them. And now the lines are being blurred a little bit. You still got, boom bap, and you still got, but a lot of this is trap, and it's a singy trap, emo. Like, I mean, what's crazy to me now is like you see a lot of these rappers and they dress like what a lot of these guys would have dressed like in the punk bands,
Right.
or the emo band, So
There's been a lot of changes in this market, for the rap market and the artists. There's another change in that guard that you're talking about, I know that I saw a show with Chance the Rapper, T.I., and was it Nicki Minaj? And they were going around to like the different hoods around America, and they would line up, and it was kind of like American Idol, but for the hood, right? For rappers and shit. It's great. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But some of the people that they pulled in talent-wise that actually made it through are doing some records now with the people that you're talking about, how these people are going to like this guy who's making the beats or that guy that's, and it's a weird dynamic. But I saw a lot of that behind the scenes on that show, and I found that pretty cool. Have you worked with any other people, or are you strictly kind of just you're about you?
Well, I have two artists that I am working with right now. A kid named AP. You can find him on YouTube under AP Official, and then another kid named Kato, Kaedo, and that's Kato Official on YouTube. They're not like anything I'm doing, but they're younger kids and they're trying to get out there. So I've been working with them. I've had aspirations when I was younger of working with like bigger artists and stuff, by the time I got financially to a point where I could even ask for features, a lot of the artists that I would have dreamed about working with years ago, like, it just doesn't make sense for the style of music I'm doing. Like, for instance, huge fan of Do or Die, one of my favorite rap groups growing up. And I actually, through my friend Justin Lickey, who runs a promotion company, got to open up for one of the guys from Do or Die, right? Well, we got to hang out afterwards, and me and my friend Justin were talking, and we were like, man, it'd be great to collab with these guys. Well, then I just started thinking about, well, what the hell would I talk about? Like I've been on this kind of political kick, and, even the first couple of songs when I came back up here, I might have got nostalgic and got on some old school, stuff. But by and large, it wasn't the direction I wanted to go full swing, So when the opportunity arose to work with some of these older artists, I realized like it's not so much that I've outgrown them, but I just kind of realized like there's definitely a message that I feel strongly about and that I want to get across, and I just don't feel like I can convey that message with somebody else's words, Now, if I was able to like actually work with somebody that would jump on the same page as me and share the same viewpoints as I did, then yes, absolutely. But it's really hard to find somebody that's going to ruffle those kinds of feathers, we live in a day and age right now, as much as I would love to work with some artists, we live in a day and age right now where if I said, Trump didn't do what you said he did, well, now all of a sudden I'm automatically a Trump supporter, even though all I'm doing is saying like, no, you don't have all the facts straight.
Right.
Now I'm automatically a Trump supporter, vice versa. Like I say, well, Trump did this. Whoa, you're a liberal. It's insane. So the climate that we're in right now makes it really hard to like, to work with anybody, especially if you're trying to talk about something, if I was just making, just your regular old, she wants to do me in the club rap, I could find a million different artists that want to do it,
Right.
But the minute I start, well, and the political climate has definitely like taken some artists even that I like admired, and then I see some of the sound bites from them, and I'm just like, man, you really don't think like that, do you?
Right.
So yeah, at this stage in the game, I have local people that I'd love to work with. I have local people that I would love to work with and reach out to and get some stuff going. But beyond that kind of a scope, not really. You know, the industry is a very small fraternity, and there's only a few hand-chosen people that get to play in that club, you know?
Right.
I mean, think about it. If you were to go through right now and name off top 10 trending rappers right now, you know, you're going to have a hard time. Now you expand that list to 20.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to realize, like, holy shit, this is a very small, select group of people.
Right.
You know, and that's just one genre. Now you spread it out across all genres. There's maybe 100 total through all different genres. There's maybe 100 different groups or artists that you might be able to think of. And then beyond that, who else is doing anything?
Right.
So, I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, not a problem. I wanted to play one of your first tracks, Next Level. So, Mike, Next Level is the first track I'm going to play of yours. I think it's a good showcase for you. You won't be able to hear it, but I'll let you know when you're done with it. All right?
I done hit the couch in the trap house. Made a couple bands, now I'm back out. Hit the year before the paint, no back down. I'm seeing what they lack now. Endurance like I'm Pacquiao. Whoa. I am frozen like the tundra. I won't slow down, there's no slumber. You won't see me going under like no. They ain't even at my feet. I will never see defeat. I'ma run it like a track meet. Whoa. They some clowns, they some hoes. Quick to snitch out all they foes. And they aiming right at your stay woke. We're them dudes that started hating. I can feel the aggravation. We gon' treat them like vacation. They broke. I know you hate to see me still on top. I know it hurts you that I chop the top. I know they wishing they could make it stop. But all that hating made me hot. Come to the land of 20 below 2 feet. The snow stay frozen when it's cold. When it's cold, we can go toe to toe. When the snow won't blow, I'll watch you fold. I explode on the track, diarrhea when I speak. When I shit, you get this heat. Bring it back to the beat, bring it back to the street. You cook, you press this beef raw. Nobody do it better, huh? Get switched or run the cheddar. Trust no one except the gut. That's why I hit him with that uppercut. I done hit the couch in the trap house. Made a couple bands, now I'm back out. Hit the year before the paint, no back down. I'm seeing what they lack now. Endurance like I'm Pacquiao. Swerving, switching lanes, trading pain. I'm trying to get it. They can speak it, but I live it. Let me paint the picture, see the difference. We are not the same. You can't breathe the air I breathe. You ain't seen the things I've seen. You ain't been to where I've been. I am top tier, upper atmosphere. I'm cold, make it scream my name like who? Mike Jones. Welcome to Sheboygan, let me show you my throne. Fuck around and let the boy get in his zone. I am home, motherfucker, blow it up, get wrecked. On my mellow G shit, bitch, cut that check. No diamonds on my neck, low key, no flex. But dimes that give me neck, no gag reflex, yeah. I'm a dirty dog like a motherfucker. I've been hitting dabs like a motherfucker, yeah. I mean, I'm higher than a bitch. That means I'm eyeing up your bitch. You don't want no problems, man. Matter of fact, fall back. This a toast to all the hustlers. Raise a glass to the culture.
Raise a glass to the culture. That was Mike Jones, Next Level. I really like that one. I've heard that one before. Probably what got me hooked a little bit interest-wise. I was like, oh, who's this guy? That sound, it just is, it's pro as you know, the just mix so well with that track. And your sound, the way you sound, the way you rap, it's fluid and it's good, man. It's right. It's just on point. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So
that song actually was probably one of the first songs I recorded moving back up to Sheboygan, Wisconsin.
When did you move back? What year?
Last year. Last year. I came back last winter, and the coldest winter in recorded history. So,
shout out to Sheboyganites. Yep.
But But it was I was working with Uppercut Culture. We do CBD products. It's also an offshoot of Wisconsin Hempgeneering. So I worked with them graphically, and being an artist, I was just like, man, let's do some music too, you know?
Yeah.
So I went a little backwards on that track, you know, because you don't really want to rap about like politically charged stuff. But the whole idea was, you know, here we're selling legal weed, you know, if we could think about it like that. But
right.
That was the whole idea there was like, he's doing CBD products. And, so we just had this funny idea. We were like, man, we'll make it look like this guy's this big drug dealer and all he's doing is selling CBD stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that definitely, it lit the fire, it lit the charge to get started again. And I mean, big shout out to Josh Garcia, my buddy Koki, really lighting that fire under my ass to get me going again, you know?
Sure. Yeah, man. I know those guys. Shout out to Wisconsin Hempgeneering and Uppercut Culture. You can find both of those guys online. Got a ton of swag, stuff you can buy, a lot of graphic stuff done by Mike himself. So shout out to those guys. So let me ask you, you know, I know that we went back to your early stuff, but I never got your age. So what year were you born?
I was born in 1977. I am 42.
Oh, you don't look it, brother. So I can understand a little bit of that perspective too, because you know you're like right now is the time. Like we're getting to that point where if we don't do it now, we're not going to do it, right? And we've been trying our whole lives in different ways, myself included. That's why I talk about it as us, to get things off the ground, you know, and man, it's a struggle, but once you get your baby going, you know, and I think yours is starting to crawl and hopefully starting to walk pretty soon on its own. So I know I got two more tracks for you. We talked about the political charge stuff a little bit and how you're not really trying to get into that. I feel like it's hard not to living in what we're going through these days, having the president that we have. I know that there's a lot of people in Sheboygan that are pro-Trump. I'm going to not put out my personal opinion. I just noticed that there's a lot of pro-Trump people here. And
I think one of the distinctions that needs to be made is, you know, having certain ideas, having certain thoughts of the way things should be, doesn't necessarily align you with a political party.
Right.
You know, that's where our most division is coming from, you know? So you got people that are like, oh, I'm a Trump supporter, you know? So you support his ideas. What about your own ideas? You know, so we got to stop supporting candidates and start supporting what's right and wrong, you know? So I've tried to stray away from it to a degree, but there's a big part of me that wants people to wake up, you know, like just because I disagree with you doesn't mean that, you know, we weren't friends, you know, like that's the underlying core thing that needs to happen is just because we share a different political affiliation doesn't mean we can't be friends or we can't see eye to eye. The discourse is gone right now.
Yeah.
You know,
you're hitting something on the head that I've experienced a lot of myself. Where that's why I try not to put my views out there because they don't align with a lot of the people in my area, and it's literally cost me friendships. Where like I appreciate the way that you think about it, and I'm not looking down on you about what you're doing. You know, not you, but just whoever I'm talking to. But yet, the reciprocation of open-mindedness doesn't seem to be there, and I think part of that is just with this lockdown and this quarantine stuff that's been going on. Shit's been crazy, you know. And people are just a little over on edge, but that's just my personal opinion.
The minute you incentivize somebody by saying, you know, think about it. We haven't been, a lot of us have not been able to work for going on 3 months.
Right.
You know, So now all of a sudden you ain't got money coming in. You don't know what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
For those of us, there's some of us that don't even qualify for them stimulus checks, right? So all that's going on, and then you're going to incentivize some poor schlub to essentially snitch on his neighbor because his neighbor's having fun.
Yeah.
You know, they've used a fear tactic of you don't care about me or my health or my family's health. That's a fear tactic. You know, the police and these institutions are there for our protection. You know what I mean? So it's a fine line. It's a fine line because I don't want to come out and say, I don't think the coronavirus is fake. I don't think that, but I don't think it's as deadly as they say it is. I don't think it's as crazy as the numbers have been put out there, you know?
So it's hard. It's hard to get good news. I find that each channel is biased in their own way.
Yep.
You know, and so it's just difficult to even find the truth nowadays.
But
going to hold on one second. Just going back to what you were talking about. I know that, like, especially in New York, they have like trailers, refrigerated trailers stacked with bodies. You know, that's the kind of stuff that I've been seeing on the news. But yet locally, in the people in my network, and I know a lot of people. I don't know, but maybe one person that's had it and they recovered. And so I do agree that the percentage of people that we're losing and are dying is it worth this lockdown? And that's why I think so many people are protesting, because it's putting us into a depression that we really didn't need to be in, you know? And if we end up losing, you know, like a percentage of people, a lot of people are saying, well, is that worth ruining the economy? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, look, when it comes to what we're seeing from the media,
yeah,
it's definitely time to start questioning some of the stuff we've seen. You know, we've seen instances where they've shown the same hospital in Italy 3 times, but once it was in New York, once it was in North Carolina, you know, all 3 turned out to be this hospital from Italy.
Right.
I think it's
what news channel is
unhealthy. I can't remember. CBS.
All right.
CBS.
All right.
I think it's dangerous to grab that situation and apply it with a broad brush to all the different situations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but do we need to be locked down like this? I mean, look at the countries that haven't locked down at all.
Right.
You know, that haven't locked down at all. Look at, I think it's Iowa. Is it Iowa that hasn't locked down at all?
Right.
What are their numbers like? You know, now you're going to have people that are like, well, it's obviously not a hotbed like New York is, right? But when you have testing that comes in and 80% of these tests are giving out false positives, you know, that raises some questions. Look,
I agree.
If somebody told me, you know, stick your dick in this machine here, it only takes your dick off 80% of the time. Well, are you going to take that risk? I know I'm not. You know, so, but I also don't want to make fun of people that are living in that fear either. You know,
right.
There's people that are fear, and I definitely don't want to poke fun, and I definitely don't want people to feel like your opinion or go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, there's a paranoia and I know a lot of people have really dived into like conspiracy theory, and because it's not striking home to them either, they know something's up. And so they're trying to naturally figure out what that is. Unfortunately, there's a whole lot of garbage out there that is really, you know, out there that sometimes they hold on to and they pull into. One of the things, and I'll just mention this if you've heard this or not, is the babies that supposedly the Hollywood elite is like draining their blood, and like they're then putting the meat into McDonald's. And there's like literally people are sending me articles on this shit where it looks legit and pro, but like I know better, you know, like either that or I'm way not in tune with what's going on in the world.
Well, think about it like this. You know, if you have all this factual factually based evidence, right?
Yeah.
And you're about to blow the lid off some shit. And then all of a sudden, the big home run is, and they eat babies, bro. You're done. You're done. It's like reading a book and you read the best book you've ever written in your whole life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everything in this book is just telling you like the most awesome home remedies and how to build a house from scratch. And then at the very last page, it says, and that's why all men have two assholes. You're gonna be like, the whole book is shot. The whole book is shot. Like these are goofy generalizations, but I mean it's the truth. Think about it. So
what gets people?
We now have
what gets people on that track of mine? I mean, first of all, have you heard any of that stuff? Because that's been on like.
I've heard a bunch of it. I've actually seen a bunch of.
Oh, thank goodness! That way, I'm not coming out of the dark for you. I want to hear I want to hear your thoughts on this.
At the risk of sounding like I've always been into conspiracy theories. Anybody that knows me, like I've driven people nuts with this stuff. You know what I'll tell you is this: there's a lot of evidence pointing to that. Yeah, there's some goofy stuff happening. You know, now there's no actual footage of anybody actually eating said babies.
Right.
There's no evidence of, but there's a bunch of creepy things. You know, there's just a bunch.
Like what? Give me an example. What's number one on your list? What turned you into believer?
Number one thing that messed me up the most was seeing a picture of Epstein Island, and then seeing Ellen DeGeneres' set, and then seeing like how similar Ellen's set was to Epstein Island, and then going back through and seeing like how her and Tom Hanks and all these, like, it's crazy. I mean, but think about it. How insane do you sound when you tell somebody these things? You know, like,
right.
Oh, bro, it's adrenochrome, man. They're sucking the blood out of these babies so they can live longer. You know, it's like,
right.
Man. And that's how people used to feel about UFOs. But keep in mind, the CIA just not even a month ago just came out and said UFOs are real, and nobody batted an eyelash. You know, so
yeah.
I mean, in comparison with everything else that's going on in 2020, that's a year we've had where they just told us UFOs are real, and we're like, yeah.
You know, I was in the same boat. I was in disbelief because it came out kind of when a lot of other stuff was going out, which kind of slipped it underneath the radar because of the coronavirus and what was going on right immediately at that time. But again, like that should have been like everybody's just eyes and mouth opened and dropped, you know, like that's the biggest announcement that has ever come along in the history of the U.S., in my opinion, which is, we have actual UFOs that do not operate in a way that we're technologically able to here in the U.S., and we can't understand yet. Now, we pride ourselves as being the foremost military, the foremost in technology, the foremost in leader of the superpower in the world. So if we can't figure that out, well,
but
if you're talking about reverse engineering and going down into, you're going down a rabbit hole.
A little bit, but Operation Paperclip. So nobody realizes this. And look, the same propaganda techniques are being employed right now as were used during Nazi Germany. But here's another thing. So we go over there, we whoop their ass, World War II, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they say, oh, we got to have this huge military tribunal. We caught all these scientists and all these fucking engineers and all these generals and shit from the Nazi party. Eight out of however many that they captured, I want to say 60 plus, maybe even higher than that, right? 8 people were put to death. The rest of them employed by the United States government. Going on to start NASA, going on to be a part of politics, you know, just craziness, you know. So
right.
We have all those German scientists, them Nazi scientists, them Nazi engineers. Now they work for the U.S., right? Now all of a sudden you start thinking about
going and looking at all their social engineering and the shit that they did to make it so it was okay to kill that many innocent people.
Right.
I mean, think about that. Think about it. What do you have to do to somebody's mind to make them okay with you're just going to slaughter anybody that's that race? You know what I mean? So now you start thinking about what they're portraying Hollywood as to us, you know? It's just a bunch of Satan worshiping baby eaters, you know, just meant to keep you down. But then you also look,
right.
Here's the other thing. On the other side of that fence, though, when you see a whole shitload of people attacking one person so hard, it's got to raise a question to yourself. Why do they hate that man so much? You know, is it just because he said to build a wall, or they said he's racist? You know, like, so I don't trust none of them.
Yeah.
I don't trust none of them.
When it comes to politics, you know, one of the things that I learned early is that people in power reposition their position of power, meaning like once you're a powerful person, you make sure that you can't get that taken away from you, right?
Yeah.
And so we have had this go on in our legislative groups for so long that it's just become this cesspool of elitisms, and none of our personal, we get a small percentage. I can't say that 100% of them are crooked, but I would say a lot of them are. I would say that the majority rule is. I would say that the majority rule is what counts in the vote, and
that's why I try to tell everybody to be careful, because they're so close to, they're so quick to point out, like, oh, well, Trump did this, this, and this, you know.
Yep.
Well, look at what your side's up to too, you know. And the same goes for anybody that's like, well, Joe Biden is this, this, and this. You know, you can go back and you can find dirt on Trump.
Yep.
There's no way you can't. So for people to think that, you know, this billionaire businessman just decided, like, oh, you know what? I'm for the people now. You know, don't be so quick. You know, I would do plenty of homework, but I would advise a lot more people right now that are left leaning to really start to look at their foundation that they're leaning on, because that foundation is very, very rickety at best. You know,
Yep.
The government period is rickety at best. But when you start thinking that we just got to get this one guy in because he's not as evil as the other guy, therein lies the problem.
Yeah.
Therein lies the problem.
They're both evil.
Everybody's always like, well, yeah. It's like, oh, it's the lesser of two evils. Well, it's evil nonetheless, dummy.
Yeah. I love where we went with our conversation, but I want to pull us back a little bit. I have 2 more tracks that I want to play and just air for people so that they can get an idea of your music. And then I'll also have some links in the descriptions again for people to find you. Han Solo, is that the one you want me to play next?
Yeah, Han Solo is the one we'll be shooting a video.
Perfect. So you're going to be shooting a video possibly even tonight for this, you said. Weather's...
Yes. Quarantine edition, man. We're
awesome.
Employing all the old school camera tricks and just having fun, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, again, when this plays, you won't be able to hear it. I'll break back in once it's done, okay?
Sounds good.
This is Han Solo by Mike Jones.
Oh, wow. Why you look so surprised to see me? Well, I came here to do 2 things. Some kick ass and chew bubblegum. And your boy is fresh out of bubblegum. It's time to uncork this ass whooping. You already know what it is. Menace. Wake up high, time for the grind. Used to smuggle to the hut, now it's time to shine. I wake up high, fly through the sky. Millennium Falcon, I get so high. I'm Han Solo, Han Solo. I don't need help, I can do it on my dolo. Han Solo, Han Solo. I don't need help, I can do it on my dolo. It's blood on the floor, boy, don't tamper with the evidence. I'm seeing all this garbage and I question why it's relevant. Fake news, bitches, I'll address the elephant. Big booty bitches, I'll unleash the elephant. Light then it's evident, these dudes ain't got no stamina. Watered down a product that a Peter or a Pamela. This a crime scene, motherfucker, get your hands up. If you need the ops like Drake, then get your bands up. We up and I don't see us coming down. Bird shitting on these clowns, 33 for 3 and I'm crown. Sipping on crown, I got a choke on the town. There's no need to slow down because these new dudes is poo-poo, rebuke you. This voodoo that I do go through you. Metamucil, show that doo-doo. It's crucial. You don't make a move until I say so. Later, play no games with a sight. Wake up high, time for the grind. Used to smuggle to the hood, now it's time to shine high. Wake up high, fly to the sky. Millennium Falcon, I get so high. I'm Han Solo, Han Solo. I don't need help, I can do it on my dolo. Han Solo, Han Solo. I don't need help, I can do it on my dolo. Tremble. Vortex 369, I'm fully charmed like boy, no longer third eye blind. I let my scars be the stars, I'ma make them align. The whole universe inside, none greater than I. Hi, now you see me, it's easy to make a judgment call. Claiming that they greasy, you see me and I ain't budge at all. I don't stalk, I don't bend, I don't break, I don't snitch, I don't run, I don't lie, I ain't fake. Sounds great till they shooting all they questioning. Didn't you get knocked? Then how's he messaging? Present the evidence and sing it to the jury. You convict yourself before the prosecution had you buried. Wake up, time to arise. Push the front line, my eye on the prize. Fuck they thinking they knew I was gon' bring it. Ears ringing, they singing, I guess I'm back to great thing. Yeah. Wake up high, time for the grind. Used to smuggle to the hood, now it's time to shine high. Wake up high, fly to the sky. Millennium Falcon, I get so high. I'm Han Solo, Han Solo. I don't need help, I can do it on my dolo. Han Solo, Han Solo. I don't need help, I can do it on my dolo.
Han Solo. Love that fucking shit, man. Oh, I'm a Trekkie fan too, so you know, fucking Star Wars is the shit. Where did that come from?
Well, we had just got done doing a video for this song called Vision, and my buddy was like, man, everything is so heavy on here, you need to have something a little bit more light, you know. So I just got done watching the new the last, not the Force Awakens, but the one after that, which was horrible, by the way. So I was just like, man, you know what?
Is that the one where he died? Han Solo died?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
But either way, so we just decided to have some fun with it, you know?
Well, it's got a lick, man, that's fucking rememberable, you know? Like, I like that. And then that kind of reggae, that fucking sound, man, it's just, it's good. It just...
I honestly went through a DMX phase for a second there, you know? So
yeah, I
went back and I started listening to some older shit, and it just hit. When we started making the beat, when I first did that first horn lick, everybody was at the studio that night was just like, oh shit, and I was like, oh, it just, I knew I had something there.
Yeah, no, I love that shit, man. I hope my listeners do too. Han Solo, man. I'm gonna put links to all of this in our descriptions again. So, going to be recording a video tonight. You're going to be working on some new material. There's a lot going on in the world today, giving you some ideas, I'm sure. This quarantine stuff, I think, is a great opportunity to take advantage of, and we'll put that out there in social media, you know, get to that exposure.
Normally, without the quarantine, you know, the thing with doing videos is you're always like thinking about like, oh, where can we go for a location? You know, where are we gonna shoot this, or how are we gonna make this happen? And the upside, well, the major downside and upside to the quarantine is you're kind of stuck. And we're right next to Green Bay. Like, you get found outside of your house, non-essential in Green Bay, it's $500, like right out of the gate, you know? So
wow,
we've had to get more creative. Yeah, that's the thing. So we've had to get more creative in how we shoot, you know?
Yeah.
So the video we did for The Awakening, I was like, man, we'll just shoot in the house. Pretty much going to do the same thing with Han Solo, you know, just, again, though, just have fun with it, you know? Like, we had much more serious ideas, you know, for a lot of these songs, but with everything going on, it's like,
oh, I totally understand. And, you know, it gives it, I don't know, it gives it a feeling that we can all relate to because we've all been stuck in our flipping houses for how long. Let me ask you about your video. Is it for Next Level? Is that the one that you did the video by the tracks in Sheboygan and a bunch of backdrop stuff? Yeah. That in itself, just, I mean, being from Sheboygan now for the last many years, I recognize some places, didn't recognize most. And just the eye for the backdrops within each of our little locations that we had available for you to do your thing. That turned out really well. Are you doing all of your own video editing? What's going on with the producing of that?
I do all my own editing, but I have a really nice team set up between me and my friend Justin Lickey, my buddy Jay Kirsch. So
shout outs.
It was actually Justin's idea for the location. You know, when we were driving around trying to figure out what we were going to do. This is right when all this first started happening, you know. So we didn't know what was going to happen. You know, we were told like the stay-at-home order was about to be issued, and so we were like, man, we better get out and finish this video off. We drove around I start off in the video with a big long beard.
Yeah.
And that was filmed like last year sometime. And then the next scene, I got a gray beard. So it's like, man, it took me a while to get out of that trap house. But we just decided to have fun, you know, and just get it done, you know.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we struggle with as artists is we have such a tendency to overthink everything, you know, sure. And every little detail. And one thing that I'll say about this quarantine thing is it's gotten me to a point where I try not to overthink anything anymore. You know, like if the idea is there, let's just run with it and we'll figure it out, you know, from there, you know?
Yeah. And is the quarantine and this experience that we've all gone through, how do you feel like that's going to affect you going forward? You going to shake hands less, or are you going to just kind of play it off like, man, this is just all a bunch of shit?
I'm not really scared of other people as much as I am as what their intentions are.
Right.
You know, so I don't know what it's going to mean for the local music scene. I really don't. I wish I could say that everything is just going to go back to normal. You know, what I can say is I'm going to be a lot more open to helping other people out. You know, I want to use the stuff that I've learned over the years as a launch pad to help other people that are trying to find their voice. You know, I think that's one thing we do as artists is we look at a lot of these new guys coming up and we're just like, ugh, you know, they're not as good as me. And I'm not, you know, I don't right. look at it like that. You know, I find there's uniqueness in everybody. You know, everybody is masterclass at something. They just got to figure out what it is.
Yeah, we all got we all have our talents, those natural talents, and they're not exactly. the same. So
I just want to use this as a launch pad to like help other people be able to realize their dream. You know, there's other people that want to make music. There's other people that want to, you know, do videos. There's other people that want to do graphics. You know, so there's definitely one beautiful part about music is it encompasses all those different artistic things, you know, if done right, you know. So I definitely want to get together with other artists. I definitely want to get together with other designers, you know, and bring it back to what it was supposed to be. You know, this competitive thing is cool to a degree, but you know, when you start stepping on each other's toes and talking bad about the next person because they're not doing what you're doing.
Life is a journey, not a competition. You know what I mean? And if we can all learn to help each other because we're all individuals with our own talents, man, what great things we can achieve, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the one thing. Hip hop is always going to be competitive, you know, but
I feel like it's changing a little bit. I mean, it's going to be competitive, but at least with that show with Chance the Rapper and T.I. and Nicki Minaj, what that brought was kind of a handout, you know, and helping some of these folk that didn't have a voice otherwise or a platform to get noticed, you know. And just like anything, I mean, how many great people do you get out of a million, right? Maybe one, right. You know? So the real good cream of the crop talent that floats to the top has to float through a lot of bullshit in order to get to the top. You know what I mean? But it always usually rises, you know? So yeah, man, I encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, brother. You know, we have the last track. What's the setup for this one? This is No Sleep.
Okay, so as far as politically charged conspiracy theory songs go, this one was all that encompassed in the one thing. You know, I was about to be married when I was living down in Indiana, and I'm not going to say whose fault it was or nothing, but we went through this breakup. Well, we were very involved with the church. So when all that dissolved and I started looking at, you know, all the different ways in which we're told that we're not good enough, you know?
Yeah.
And without bashing, I'm not bashing somebody's beliefs, but what I am bashing is this idea that you are not great, you know,
right.
like this idea that you've got to pray to this guy to get to this guy. You've got to do all these things in a certain order. Otherwise, you know, it's not going to work out right. I mean, I don't subscribe to that. I think we're inherently all wanting to do good, you know? Now you do have evil people out there with evil intentions, but like, I got thrown out through such a loop through all that, because all the people that were supposed to be there for me during this breakup and all this crap I was going through, they wanted me to paint a different picture. They basically, without naming names or trying to place blame, you know, they really wanted me to like point my finger and be like, no, you're bad, I'm good type of thing. And I wasn't feeling that, because it takes two to tango, you know? So even though our relationship dissolved, I'm not going to blame her completely. But then, so what ended up happening was, because of that outlook that I had on religion at that point in time, coupled with my affinity for conspiracy theories and all that, you know, I was like, man, let me just talk about something. It was the first song that I recorded off of The Awakening, and it was definitely that track right there has got all my ideas kind of loosely spun into one song.
Right on. All right. Well, with that said, No Sleep. Remember, I'll be right back. Believe in dinosaurs, UFOs. That's fucking fallen names. That's fucking, that hook, man. That's great. That's great.
Appreciate it, man.
So you know what? You hit that right on the head, man. Especially with all this conspiracy stuff. That is a great track that we ended with for you. Other than posting the links to find you, anything you want listeners to know, anything you want fans to know, what's going on this year? I know with the quarantine, you're probably not playing out as much. Do you have plans? Give us the 411.
We've had 3 shows that have been canceled during this whole thing. We will be back in full force. You'll be able to check my Facebook page, Modern Perception Studios at youtube.com. We'll have a video shooting tonight. Will be released within the next couple of days. But yeah, the biggest message I want to get out to people is, man, think for yourselves, man. Do not allow a narrative being painted by one side to make you decide everything you want to think. Think for yourselves, man. Just because somebody doesn't agree or somebody thinks something different than you doesn't make them your enemy.
Right.
You know, unless they think that eating babies and you know, if they're on that team, then maybe they're not your buddy.
You know, I saw this thing about the human meat in McDonald's food, and I don't know, like, I tried tracking it down. I think it's just one of those fake news deals, but still, man, it's hard to know because shit'll catch fire, and so it's hard to know what's real and what's not. And then you hear about all this conspiracy shit, and you're like, damn, maybe maybe we're eating babies now. I knew I like McDonald's for a reason, but fuck no.
This is kind of how I look at all that shit, you know, is
baby, it's the other white meat.
Baby back ribs gives a whole new meaning now.
Yeah, no kidding.
I think the way I view all that stuff and the way to look at it is, you know, how many different sources are coming out with the same story, and then you gotta also ask yourself what the end game is of telling such a lie.
Yep.
You know, so what would be the goal, the loftiest goal from telling such a crazy tale? You know, and when it comes to the celebrities and stuff like that, I don't know.
That's the thing that kills me, because I saw some of those links you're talking about. There was one from Mel Gibson. There was another one from which ones have you seen? I've seen a few.
I've probably seen 90% of them. Like I'm a nerd with it, man.
Right on. Anything that
I watched the Mel Gibson.
So let me ask this, and then we can leave it for people to think about. With the conspiracy theory web that you know, what in the fuck is really going on here in the U.S. or the world?
We are being set up right now. One of the biggest psyops in global history. You know, we've essentially locked down an entire planet based on something known deadlier than the flu. I mean, you can look at it, all the numbers you want to. I mean, the CDC websites say themselves, like, what's going on. You know, like, now all of a sudden heart disease and diabetes and all these other diseases that take all these lives are all of a sudden flatlined, and it's all COVID deaths. You know, like, if that doesn't raise enough red flags for you, I don't know what does. But then you see, like, our whole planet is locked down. Our whole freaking planet.
What's the purpose of it? Like, is it the aliens? Like, they took over? Like, I
don't think. I mean, that's a whole nother podcast, buddy. But,
we'll have to do that in another point. That'd be fun.
I think if you study it down and you look up, and this is where you start. You look into eugenics. Eugenics is what ties people like Jeffrey Epstein to people like Bill Gates to places like Harvard University to the Wuhan lab in China. I mean, now you start studying eugenics and figure out what eugenics is, and then look at who also practiced eugenics, which is Adolf Hitler. When you start tying these together and start understanding that these people definitely believe that there's an elite race, and I think it goes deeper than that. I think the reason why there's no question, and I mean, I challenge anybody that would be watching this that would want to challenge me. I'm open to debate, but challenge me. Like, explain to me where you see that black people are not being persecuted, and if you can point blank prove to me that that's not happening, then boom, the eugenics argument is out the window. But you can't. That's the whole thing. I mean, if you look at Africa, you look at even in Great Britain, anywhere where there is a black population, and look at how that black population is treated. And then you ask yourself, well, why? Why would they attack one group of people so hard? You know, is it because they're in fear? You know, and that would be my biggest thing. Like, why would you attack somebody or hurt them unless you were fearful of what they could become or what they could do, right? Mm-hmm. Even that statement in and of itself sounds as horrible as anything they're talking about, because it's like we're looking at people as different just because they have a different complexion of skin, you know? And melatonin does not make a human. Humans make humans.
Right.
You know, so
it's the human experience.
I would challenge anybody. Yeah. So if you want to tie all of it together, study eugenics, and then you start to understand what is happening here. This is definitely a move, a power grab, you know, to serve whatever agenda they're trying to serve, you know. And I don't want to go too far off on that because it's impossible to think what the next man is up to. But I know what we need to do as far as a country, as a planet, period, is unite. You know, unity.
Awareness comes first, and then you unite to stand up against the front. Yeah. One person can't do it alone, but many voices make an army, right?
Exactly. That's why you guys got to turn off the news sometimes. Yep. You know, like they're not trying to help you. You know, we need to help each other. And I think the biggest thing we can do for ourselves right now is stop listening to what the media is telling us, because they're not telling us the truth. There's kids in China right now that are like fucking keeling over dead in gym class from fucking wearing those masks, trying to do a fucking 1 mile run.
Yeah.
Like, hello, like, why, what the fuck are we thinking?
Yeah.
So we need to wake up, and it needs to be a mass wake up. It can't be just a couple of us, and it needs to be, if you've got a voice, whether it be through music, whether it be through art, whether it be through any medium that you're doing it, your number one responsibility to yourself and to all of your fans right now should be uniting them.
Yeah.
Looking past our simple differences and putting those to the side for a minute, because we've got a greater cause, and that's to save humanity.
Yep. Yeah. We have all the markers that we need to unite. I mean, between what we've already talked about, the climate change, the pollution issues, the globalization in itself has, I mean, this idea of you and me and them, and we're more superior than you are, and all of the things that as nations we tend to come to the table with. It's a long history that most of these places were built on. And I think the U.S. comes with this snub-nosed new guy attitude where these countries have been around for, thousands of years kind of thing. And it sometimes, because of our power and wealth, and I mean, these are all natural resources that hadn't been exploited for, thousands of years. So when we opened up country here with Manifest Destiny, and we took over, and then we started to reap the profits that, naturally the land gave us, obviously it gave us great wealth, but it didn't give us great responsibility. We deforested most of our country. We pollute like no one's business. We always put our nose in other people's business. And instead of leading with what you and I are talking about, which is this teamwork idea, even our current president, I don't think embraces unity and globalism and accepting everyone. He's an elitist himself. And the leader of our country, in my opinion, needs to direct us and show us by example. If we're making fun of people's names, or we're making fun of people's countries like China, and shit like that, it does something to our relationships with our other nations, right? These people that we're trying to get along with. The UN has gone. Well, let me just finish real quick. So the UN's gone down the table. The WHO is kind of getting off the table, and these were agencies that were trying to help unite us. One was looking forward to trying to take care of our biggest health risks globally. The other one was trying to unite us as countries, right? And currently our leadership is completely has withdrawn from a lot of that, or a lot of agreements, a lot of things that he's done that I totally disagree with, and take us away from that unity. So the message that I wanted to end on was unity is everything, and camaraderie, and loving thy neighbor, and really teamwork in terms of getting through life is the way to go. I mean, I'm 46. I'm not really super old, but I'm old enough to know that I can't do everything fucking alone. And, we need one another, and I need your music, and I need your smart thoughts and your inspirations to inspire me, just like I hope that in some way, maybe there's somebody out there that I can inspire. And so with that, I want to thank you for taking the time to have this podcast with me. And I would be open to having another podcast with you in the future after you get some more stuff done.
Most definitely, bro.
All right, bro.
Most definitely, man.
You have yourself a great day, all right?
All right.
All right.
Bless.
So I want to thank Mike Jones for being our guest today on Digital Voices. He is an artist. He is a philosopher. He has a brain that can think on a machine gun level. I appreciated his thoughts, his ideas. I really appreciate his music, as I hope you guys do. And again, take a look at our description links for links to his music, and we wish him the best. You know, at the end of the day, it's all about you and me, and we need to figure out how to learn together, to live together. And the only way we can do that is by helping one another. We can't do it alone. We shouldn't do it alone. Life is a journey, not a competition. And I hope you all embrace that philosophy, and I hope you all have a great day.